Welcome back. Today we're making this adorable giraffe cake. He's made with some delicious marble cake layers, and we're going to start off by making those. So this is my marble cake recipe, just one batch of it, and I've colored the vanilla portion of the batter yellow with some gel food coloring. I'm adding spoonfuls into my pans, and I'm making 3 6-inch cake layers and 3 4-inch cake layers. I'm swirling the batter together in kind of a circular motion, and I'm going to do that in each pan. These get baked in a preheated 350-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 32 to 35 minutes, or until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out with a few moist crumbs. After the cake layers have cooled, I level off the tops and trim one of the layers down just to make the giraffe's body a little bit more curved and seamless. It's super important that you level these cake layers because this cake is already going to be pretty tall, and it makes it a lot easier to stack and assemble the cake if the layers are nice and level. I'm building this giraffe cake on a 10-inch cake drum, which you can see is a lot thicker than a regular cake board. It's about a ½ inch thick, and I really like using thicker cake boards for taller, heavier cakes like this, just because it makes it easier to transport in and out of my fridge or freezer, and just makes the cake feel more stable as you build it. So I've stacked my 3 6-inch cake layers, and I put my carved cake layer on the top. Next I'm going to add on my 4-inch cake layers on top of that, and you can see that I've already kind of trimmed the sides of them to make the neck a little bit tapered, and I'm stacking them from the widest cake layer up to the smallest one. I inserted a wooden dowel that was about 10 inches tall into this cake for 2 reasons. Number 1, it makes it so much easier to add the crumb coat and frost this cake, and number 2, we're going to need it down the road to add on the giraffe's head. So now it's time to add on our crumb coat, which is just a thin layer of frosting that helps lock in any crumbs. This is also a great time to start to kind of give your giraffe cake some shape. I like to wait to color my buttercream until after I've added my crumb coat, just because you don't really need colored frosting on the inside of the cake. I think the white buttercream also really helps the cake layers pop. Once I had smoothed out my crumb coat, I chilled this cake in the freezer for about 10 minutes, and while I did that, I worked on my cake decorating Rice Krispies. So I melted down 5 cups of mini marshmallows in the microwave. It took about a minute. Then I added in 7 cups of Rice Krispie cereal, or any puffed cereal would work, and I mixed the mixture together. It should be pretty sticky, as you can see here, so you're going to want to spray some nonstick spray onto your hands to make these easier to handle. Then it's time to make our giraffe legs and head. So you really want to compact the Rice Krispies as you're doing this because it'll help them keep their shape better and make them so much easier to frost. As I'm shaping my legs, I love to hold them up against my cake just to make sure they're proportionate and that they're going to fit onto the cake. After shaping my Rice Krispies, they're usually still a little bit warm, so they stick pretty easily to the chilled cake with a little bit of pressure. I also slid my giraffe head onto the top of our wooden skewer, and it's super important that the head is compact with those Krispies so that it's easy to do that and it doesn't fall apart. Then it was time for the most time-consuming portion of this cake, which is just frosting it and smoothing it. So I started off using some light yellow buttercream on the kind of tummy of the giraffe and the mouth, or the muzzle, and then I added bright yellow buttercream all around the cake. I'm using a large flat piping tip here, which I'll link in the video description below. It makes it so much easier to get a nice even layer of frosting around your cake, so I highly recommend using it if you have one. To achieve this shade of yellow, I used a bit of bright yellow gel food coloring and actually a little bit of orange as well. I also made some chocolate buttercream just by melting down some chocolate and adding it to a small portion of my frosting, and I'm using that to make the giraffe's hooves and also to add on his spots. I smoothed those out with an acetate sheet and then used a bit of fondant to make his ears, his little horns, and his eyes. The last step, as always on my animal cakes, is to add on a party hat, and I think that's because all of my animal cakes are party animals. Pun intended there. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want the recipe for this giraffe cake, it's up on Chelsweets.com, and I'll include the link in the video description below. But before we go, I'm going to quickly show you guys the inside of this cake. The marble cake layers turned out so pretty, and they were absolutely delicious. There's something about a marble cake that is just so good. So until next time, happy baking!